You can't be a passenger in your own life. You can't sit back in row 12 on a bus and hope it takes you where you're wanting to go. If you want to go where you want to go, you got to get up in the driver's seat and start going where you want to go. And you have to stay on the move. If you're out in front leading the parade and you stop moving your feet, your butt's going to be back in the tuba section before you realize it. You've got to keep moving. And the harder you find this, to do, the more important it is that you do it. If it's easy, you may have been working on this already. I kind of doubt it. But the harder you find it to do, the further you are from where you need to be. Look, life is managed. It's not cured. Every one of us is in business for ourselves. Every one of us is a CEO of one. You're in business for yourself. I don't care if you work for a massive organization or you're a stay-at-home parent. You are in business for yourself. I don't care if you're working for money or some other kind of currency. How well your life is going is up to you, and I'm just trying to give you some tools to break it down. Ask yourself, if you could change 3 things in your life right now today, if you were king or queen of the forest for the day, and you could change 3 things in your life, what would they be? Have you ever thought about that? Think about it now. If you could change 3 things in your life right now, today, what would you change? And you may think, oh, I can answer this really quick. That's like the genie popping out of the lantern and saying you have 3 wishes. What are they? Well, people tend to choke when they get asked that question, particularly if one of the wishes can't be, give me 1,000 more wishes. No, there were 3 things you could change in your life. What would they be? Wise folks have pondered that question. A lot of people say, well, I'd eliminate all disease and suffering in the world. Really? Really? We would have a huge overpopulation problem in this world. Where are you going to put all these people? 90+% of the people that have ever lived are now dead. If they were all still here, where would you put them all? How would you feed them all? What would you do with them? You have to really think about this. You could change 3 things in your life. What would they be? And have you ever wondered, said I was going to ask you a bunch of questions. I'm making good on that. Have you ever wondered how you got to be who you are right now at this moment in time as you're listening to me talk? How you got to be the person that you are. If your name's Bill, Bob, Karen, or Sue, there's only one of you in the history of the world. Now, somebody might share your name, but there's only one of you. And there will never, ever be another. Think about that. There has only been one of you in the history of the world, and there will never be another. How did you get to be who you are? I can actually help you answer that question if you are interested. Because you see, life doesn't happen just without some consistencies and patterns. I wrote a book a long time ago called Self Matters. I think it's one of the most important things I've ever done. And in that book, I talk about what I call 10-7-5. I think during our life, certainly by the time we get to be adults, that we have experienced 10 defining moments, made 7 critical choices, and encountered 5 pivotal people in our lives. 10-7-5, 10 defining moments. A defining moment is a moment that occurs in your life where you are one way before that moment occurs, and then you are changed in a lasting way after that moment occurs. You're one way before the moment, and then you are altered in an enduring way after that moment happens. Something occurs that changes you in a lasting, enduring way. And we generally experience 10 of these defining moments at some point in our life. It might be trauma, it might be victory, it might be some revelation, it might be an experience, but it changed you in a lasting way. And when you start writing these down, I promise you, you'll have more than 10. And you will do yourself a favor if you edit it down until you get, well, this one doesn't really, it's not as important as this one, so I'm going to cross it off. I'm going to discipline myself down to 10. And then you've got to identify 7 critical choices. Now, moments can just happen. They aren't things you necessarily were an active agent in. You may have just been there when it occurred, but 7 critical choices are things that you were the mover in. You were the agent in. You made the choice. Consciously, actively made the choice. Maybe you graduated high school and you decided to get a job and buy a new car and start making the payments on it with the job you had. Instant gratification. Maybe you decided, no, I'm going to drive a clunker or keep taking the bus and go to school, wait 4 or 5 years before I buy a nice car or live in a nice place. Delayed gratification. It's just different choices. I'm not saying one's better than the other. Sometimes it's better to wait. Sometimes people strike off on an immediate desire and it turns out to be a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Who knows? Maybe that was one of your critical choices. Maybe you chose to get married. Maybe you chose not to get married. But what are the 7 critical choices you made? And in the 5 pivotal people, you'll cheat yourself if you just put your parents on there. Because, of course, they're pretty pivotal in your life. And I'll confess, when I did this, I did put my father on there. He filled 2 roles. He was a very positive, pivotal person and a very negative, pivotal person. Because he was a terrible alcoholic, often violent. He was also the hardest worker I've ever seen in my life. He was a great role model in that regard and a terrible role model in the other. So it was a twofer. So I figured he earned the right to be on the list since he filled 2 roles. So I violated my own rule and let him have one of the spots. But that oftentimes, when you step back and look at it, will tell you how you got to be who you are. 10 defining moments, 7 critical choices, 5 pivotal people. And then you answer that question, what are 3 things I would change in my life? And what do I want? Now you're starting to get to know yourself. Now you're starting to get to know yourself. Why did I start this conversation with headlines? Because we have to make a choice about what we care about and what standard we hold those that we're going to elect into offices that can impact our lives.